I'll tell you, for personal use, not for publication, a sad story. My sister was in town recently helping us while we were gone, looking out for the kids, and she put my grandson to bed and read him a book, and they were talking about mommy, and my sister said, well, you'll see mommy again someday. So Noah's like 3.5, and he said, yeah, but she won't know me because I was just a baby. That's the hurt he's caused. It's generational.
Yes, and that wears us down a lot more than a little 3-year-old, because the next minute he's talking about Spider-Man books, so he's not grasping all of it.
Yeah, they can, which is a blessing in a way, but they'll have to deal
But
with
it sure hits us hard.
Yeah, we'll be here to carry them through
Yeah.
when they get older. So.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Yes. Love you. We'll see you. Yes. Yes. I was gonna try to fold this. Oh. Okay, Sterling. You're our first. You can take them. Yay! Thank you. Do you guys have any words?
Sure, questions, that'd be fine too.
Awesome, everyone. I think we're backing up.
You guys clear the sign. Clear the sign from us. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who do not know who I am Tom Williams, the Chief of Police for the City of Winona Police Department. Behind me, I have several members of the department, as well as from the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, our prosecutor, Phil Prokopowicz, Christina Gillespie. I was making sure she was here. Obviously, from a law enforcement standpoint, we are extremely relieved of the verdict, finding Mr. Fravel guilty on all 4 counts. To say that this was a huge undertaking would be a great misunderstatement. The number of man hours that went into this by law enforcement from many different counties, state agencies, and we cannot be forgetful of the number of citizens that also stepped up to the plate to help us with this investigation. Mr. Prokopowicz accepted the offer from the Winona County Attorney's Office to assist with the prosecution of this, given the magnitude and the original difficulties associated with the case, obviously with not having Maddie's body. Throughout the entire process, they have been extremely helpful throughout the prosecution. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension assisted us at every turn. The Winona County Attorney's Office realized the depths that this would take and asked for the additional assistance. We worked on this case pretty much every single day, even after the arrest, the recovery of the body, as well as preparing for trial. The family was outstanding to work with, and I say that from a standpoint because to try and imagine the loss of a daughter and not knowing where she is, and asking law enforcement for their assistance and putting us in a position of trying to find her and determine what exactly happened, and the ability for them to understand that there were certain items that we could not discuss, parts of the case that we could not provide to them, and their understanding that justice would be served in the end. So with that, I would open it up for some questions. And again, thank you to the media for helping us get the word out. Again, thank you to the jurors who provided their time away from their family and deliberated and came to what we feel is obviously a successful conclusion.
Is this going to change the way you guys potentially handle cases like this, missing persons, domestic abuse? Like, what are you taking away from this as officers?
I think that from the get-go that we handled this very well. And again, I don't want to make it sound like we're tooting our own horn, but oftentimes law enforcement look at missing person cases and say they're adults. They don't need to be required to be entered as a missing person. They have the ability to go off on their own. However, Katie Kolka realized immediately that there was something wrong. and she called law enforcement, and by 9 o'clock the next morning, we had our entire investigative unit at the law enforcement center. We contacted the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, who immediately dispatched office agents to assist us, and the investigation took off from there. From a standpoint of an investigative piece, you always try and take something away from that, and I think that ultimately we will sit down in the days and weeks to come, talk with Mr. Prokopowicz and Ms. Gillespie, see where they feel that law enforcement could have been a little bit stronger, and also from a law enforcement standpoint to stand back, take a look and say, what did we do very well, what didn't we do so well, and hope to God that we never have to do it again. Well, the Winona community, obviously they want to have a safe environment. They want to have a great place to raise their kids. One of the reasons that Maddie moved to Winona is that she felt safe, she loved the area. The community came together immediately. They started organizing search parties before we did. We had to try and harness that energy, and our emergency management director, Ben Klinger, was outstanding when it came to harnessing that, helping with the searches, and then allowing law enforcement to actually do the investigative piece of it. I think it's a win for the Winona community to understand that when you band together and you work as a community, that ultimately you can have good things happen, even out of a tragedy such as this.
Phil, if you don't mind, domestic abuse happens so much in the shadows, as you talked about during the case here, and ultimately to prove those counts, it took testimony from friends because there weren't the official reports of abuse and there weren't photos of bruises. Can you speak to, in America, the prevalence of domestic abuse and the importance of testimony that her friends gave in order to prove that count?
I think, first of all, the awareness, and you may recall during the course of the trial the testimony of the expert witness, Melissa Skaya, who I think provides an insight, I think that many individuals don't have regarding domestic violence and the relationships that go on in those particular situations. So from our aspect, it was very important to enlighten the jury and shed that information to the jury so they could view Madeline and Madeline's story from that perspective and not just from a normal average person's perspective. So that was very important. And as you indicated, domestic violence doesn't occur in the parking. Well, sometimes it does, but a lot of it happens behind closed doors and outside the presence of others, including family members and friends, and the difficulty it is sometimes for a victim of domestic abuse and domestic violence to come forward and speak about what is going on. And I can't emphasize enough for communities and all of us to support those types of organizations that provide the assistance and the advocacy for victims of domestic violence, so they have an opportunity, maybe not the police department or law enforcement or a family member, but there's somebody there to listen to them and what's going through and provide them the necessary assistance so they can work their way through this very difficult situation.
Could you also
Practicing law for a long time. How does this case size up to all the other ones you've prosecuted throughout your career?
I've had quite a few cases. I've been doing it for 40 years. I mean, it's certainly in the top number of cases as far as size and complexity. And what's changed now so dramatically, and you may have observed it in the courtroom, is digital evidence, the cell phone information. Our lives are on our cell phones now. And financial data and text conversations and photos and images, where we've been, location. And I think that is really the new wave of law enforcement and prosecution is electronic data that we now have access to that we didn't have access to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And I'm curious, now reflecting back, do you feel like there was one piece of evidence or testimony that really convinced the jury?
No, it's the collective. As I indicated to the jury during the course of, look at the whole picture, everything. When you go through your deliberations and the like, I don't believe there was one particular piece of evidence. Obviously, there were some perhaps more significant. The text message, the conversation in December of 2022, which I think really shed a light on the relationship and what was actually going on between Mr. Fravel and Madeline Kingsbury.
Those additional charges that you added on the indictment, I'm sure took a lot more work for you personally, and but it was very important to the family to have the mandatory life sentence that comes with it.
It was based upon our review. When you initially get a case, an investigation, you have 36 hours to make some decisions. And as the chief indicated to you, it was an extensive investigation. And a lot of times we don't have all that information in front of us. The grand jury comes several weeks later. Now we've had time to digest some of that information and that investigation, and then we can make a more appropriate decision to what particular charges to present to the grand jury.
What was your reaction then to just the guilty across the board after all that work and working with the family and knowing that they really want those higher counts too?
I can't say enough our appreciation for the jury in this case, the Blue Earth County jury. They were attentive throughout the trial. They followed the judge's instructions, and that's how our system of justice works. As far as the family, I'll reserve that for sentencing and some of those comments regarding sentencing and the impact it's had.
There should be no surprises at sentencing, though, right? Pretty
No,
clear,
it is a mandatory life sentence without parole for the first-degree premeditated murder. For the first-degree murder past pattern, he would be eligible for release after 30 years. There's no guarantee of that. And then the second degrees, he will only be sentenced on one.
And Zach Bauer spent hours trying to dismantle you and Christina Gillespie's arguments. What would you say was the biggest challenge in this case for you guys?
The biggest challenge was the amount of information. As we indicated, just hours, and hundreds of hours, and thousands and thousands of computer entries and from the Cellbrite reports and the phone reports and the like, and trying to organize that and try to do it in a manner that is representative of the case, especially in a final argument. You don't want to be talking up there for 4 or 5 hours. You got to get it, and you got to try to figure out how to focus on what is important, and that's why we focus on motive and opportunity and some of the additional information.
How does this feel for you to get this verdict as someone who's working closely with this? I know your closing statement yesterday, there was some emotion. Was that something you're just conveying to the jury? Is it something you felt yourself as well?
Oh, you always feel it. As a prosecutor, you always feel it. I mean, you get very connected with law enforcement, in the hours you get connected with them, you get connected with the family, and there's a sense of a person. It gets personal, and sometimes that does come out. And then you take a drink of water and you move on.
So Phil, was there probably going to be a case even if Maddie was never recovered?
I can't answer that. That's something we'd have to evaluate at the time. I've had cases of that nature, and you just have to evaluate all the information you have in front of you.
But as to the investigators that kept on working and eventually
I
brought
can't.
Maddie home,
I can't say enough. I can't say enough from all the cases that I've worked throughout my career, the Winona Police Department, Winona Sheriff's Department, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and all the Fillmore Sheriff's Department. Everyone in this case did an amazing job, and I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the work that they did. And also to the Winona County Attorney's Office, the staff back there at home that we call up late at night and can you get this to us and get that to us, and the community of Winona. When you drive into town and you're for a hearing and you see the blue ribbons down the street, that kind of inspires you a little bit to put your best foot forward and do what needs to be done.
And now you don't work for the Winona County Attorney's
No.
Office. You were brought in specifically for this case. What made you want to take this case and try it?
I retired in 2019, and like I've done some work on the side. I was contacted by the Winona County Attorney's Office, briefed on the case, and it's just something when you do this work for as long as you do it, there are certain cases you get a calling for, and this is one that you get a calling for.
And what was that calling?
Madeline, and it just the whole circumstances, knowing that you have the support of the law enforcement community and the like. That's primarily it. That's it. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a safe drive back.
Venmo, Cashbell.
Yeah, huh.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Like I said, you